this is my I have a question, a related question. I want to move past the exchanges for a moment, whether or not states can nullify it. And that's another question that the state legislature has to grapple with. The governor has recommended raising the threshold for Medicaid eligibility in Michigan. Okay, and that with that recommendation is one that was encouraged by the Obama administration. Okay, and that encouragement came with billions and billions of potential additional dollars from the federal government. Now that
government has no money.
Let's all pretend. So my question is, where do each of you believe the House will come down on that request to increase the threshold for eligibility for Medicaid assistance from the state of Michigan? Right? The proposal is basically, as I understand it, to raise it to 160% of the federal poverty level. And if an individual is earning that or less, they become eligible for Medicaid funds.
Hey, Mike, so that'd be, just to clarify, that'd be lowering the threshold because they're going to expand the number of
They're actually raising the threshold for eligibility.
Yes.
Okay. So whatever the poverty threshold is now for a household of four, what is, I think it's 26,000. They're going to raise it to 160% of that. So it's whatever that whatever. So that all of those households become eligible for Medicaid funding from the state of Michigan. Okay. So my question is, do you believe that the House will go along with that recommendation from Governor Snyder, or leave the threshold where it is, or lower it? Roger,
I'll start looking at this here. I don't have a lot of eye into this, but the chamber has brought in some different ideas, and the chamber has highlighted that this may be an opportunity for us to reform. And I think we need to explore that as our potential too. So if we're going to move in this direction, what type of reform can be conducted? Is there savings in there to offset some of those other increased costs in the process, and explore that opportunity? But initially, again, it goes back to my belief is I got to be so careful with these federal dollars and the sustainability of federal dollars, and we know what's happening at the federal level, sequestration, this money was beginning to go out. But there again, this may be an opportunity for us to do some reform with Medicaid. So that I gave the chamber a listening ear on it, and I'm going to dig into this a little more.
Amanda?
Well, it wasn't something that the Obama administration so much said, is that Supreme Court opened this up as a possibility for Medicaid expansion. And so the states could do this as a result of that ruling last year. The governor looked at the cost of expanding Medicaid to a certain population. Now, I agree with Roger. I think there's cost savings and reforms that we need to do. And if we're going to do this, and I'm not inclined to open up 400,000 more people to Medicaid, because I look at myself and I say, okay, how am I managing my own health care? Am I keeping my weight under control? Am I getting to the doctor's appointments? Am I getting my meds? Am I taking my meds every day? And I have not great health care, but I have health care. So you go to a population of folks who haven't had as good a health care and have relied on emergency services, emergency rooms for health care. And I have a great leap for me to say that we're going to experience great cost savings when we open up Medicaid to that population. Now, there is some talk in the approach subcommittees of going for a waiver, and that would allow us to go ask the federal government to implement this in a manner that we think is fiscally sound. So, for instance, rather than going to the emergency room for your toe problem, if you show up and you want treatment, it's going to cost you a $50 copay. Or you can say, I think I can wait till tomorrow and go to the clinic or my doc. And it's those kinds of cost
chance of moving forward right now. It will not be done by June 1 with budget, so if it does happen, it's going to be after that. And we need a heck of a lot of answers from the federal government as to what we would be allowed to do. I highlighted in my proposal, and you know, we have a stereotype, I think, of Medicaid funds must be the single mom who's, you know, has kids to get more aid and lives in downtown Flint, and all the negative stereotypes that you kind of have about Medicaid people. You know, I'd like to tell you a story about 3 boys that are just like, you know, my kids. You know, one is a kid who had schizophrenia all his life and went to prison when he was 14 years old. He's 21 now. He's finally out, but has gone through, frankly, he went through hell in prison as a juvenile in an adult prison. A better solution would have been some kind of mental health care. I can tell you about a friend who I went to church with as a kid. He's one of my brother's best friends, has a son with schizophrenia, went in for a 17-month sentence, minimum sentence. He will max out next year at 15 years because our corrections department didn't do anything to correct his behavior or to deal with his mental illness. I have another friend from Holland who is a business owner. He is just like you and I, with a 25, 26-year-old son who is just like your kids, who fell in the bathtub and has a closed head injury, and that kid will never be the same. And except for a relentless father trying to find out everything he could do for this kid, he finally found a solution in Ann Arbor that he can maybe get some help for him. His son, too, will end up in our corrections department. Now, the positive side, if we move forward, like Amanda said, it's something that Michigan can control, is there's $25 million that will go into our corrections department to deal with mental health issues. About 20% of our prisoners, we believe, have some kind of mental illness. We pay $35,000 a year to keep them. We warehouse them. We do very little to correct people. There's little programs that we're involved in that help. But as a whole, we don't know how to deal with our prisoners and get them back into society where they're paying taxes and not sucking taxes.
Right.
So,
I have, one second, Linda.
Okay.
I have questions from Paul and Jim.
Oh,
but-
Paul,
No,
go
no,
first.
no. Linda, you haven't asked a question yet, so I'd like you.
I just want to say, we closed, and I'm a psychologist, we closed mental health institutions a number of years ago. There's a reason that we are where we are.
oh, you're absolutely right.
That's the problem.
Linda, it's my second cousin. Community health director under John Engler. He's back under Snyder. He believes he did the right thing and he was going to send those back into the community. He claims grandma screwed it up when she got there, and he could have had a good one. So I'm
I
glad.
don't think so. I think we needed to not close Kalamazoo, we
That could
needed
be.
to not
You may
close
be-
Traverse
you may
City,
very well be
et cetera.
right.
But the thing I wanted to say, if it's okay with you, Mike, it looks like there's potential that Obamacare may fold in on itself.
You're right.
There are 22,000 pages of regulations, 7 feet tall. Why are we getting involved? Why are we not waiting? And why not let them implode? And hopefully, this is my own private wish, hopefully it'll happen at the time of the next election so that all the people who are running, such as Bill Huizinga, will be able to be reelected again.
Like I said, I think that's probably what's going to happen. I see maybe a 10 to 20% chance that we pass the expansion. If we do it, as Amanda so articulately said, there's going to be a whole lot of strings attached from us saying we will do it under these circumstances.
But we got another problem. Where are we going to get the doctors? Where are we going to get
That's
the
right.
doctors? You know what's happening right now? They're dumbing down healthcare.
Yeah.
Now, I don't mean to be critical of PAs and so forth, but you have to know to get in to see a doctor, people don't even understand there's a difference. They make a doctor's appointment, they end up seeing a PA, they don't get to see the doctor. The doctor is buried under paperwork. We have got a problem and it is bigger than money. And we may set up exactly what you guys are saying, but there won't be any providers, there won't be physicians. what physician wants 22,000 pages of regulation? Who here is gonna encourage your son, your daughter to go into medicine? We've got a problem.
Well said.
I'm running.
Full disclosure, you know, you have a little family involved in the medical.
I know mental health and he knows medicine.
Right.
But you know what, Roger? Those are the people you guys need to be talking to. And those of us who provide the service are the guys on the street.
That's right.
We are the people you need to be talking to.
That's right.
You know, that kind of knowledge is in many circles called expertise. Paul, there's a question over here before.
Okay.
I'm sorry, no, not you, Jim. This beautiful woman in front of you.
Okay.
Could you identify yourself?
My name is T. Johnson Dufford, and I am from Grand Haven. And my area of expertise is I've spent the last 6 years as a court appointed receiver. And it goes back to your UIA question earlier. In the last 6 years, I've probably done business discontinuations, a little over 200 businesses. I can get the Internal Revenue Service to pull a plug on a business, but I fight with the state of Michigan for 2 and 3 years because the licensing regulation doesn't talk to Treasury, and I get failure to file, failure to report, get all kinds of different imputed incomes, and I spend hundreds of thousands of dollars following up on dead businesses that are 4 or 5 years old. And if we can't even get a business, it should be very simple. And I'm sure your technology is starting to go towards addressing those things, but it scares the bejesus out of me to think that you guys are going to be doing my health care. I wonder if I can't, I just wonder if those numbers are used to inflate budgets. You have a lot of accounts receivable, speaking as an accountant for the last 30 years, on your books that are never going to come through because those businesses are dead. Furthermore, UIA exacerbates my problem because I'm on the time that I actually sell the asset and somebody else is now owning that business. Because of successor liability, what should be a viable business is driven out of business within the first 2 years because they inherit 13 and 14% successor liabilities. They can't make it.
Right.
So, anyway.
You mentioned Treasury. Do you have frustration with Treasury? We call it the new deed.
Actually, they pick up their, Treasury Collections picks up their phone.
Okay, dude. Okay.
And I do talk to payments on a regular basis. Your people over in Detroit at UIA Collections, forget it. You cannot get through.
I've had a lot of issues, especially with a lot of CPAs contacting me. They implemented some new software first quarter of last year, and that's when everything went crazy in UIA. And I've had meetings, at least 2 meetings with the department on how to correct it. And what they seem to do is they'll take my issues, my constituent issues, and they'll fix them. And you don't think about it, everybody else is calling the department over and over and over again, and then getting these notices that you've got some liability, and then you try to call them back and you can't get through. And they do have, last week the governor put in a new director, and that person better get up to speed real quick.
When I saw your reduction of Lara, I thought, well, that makes a heck of a lot of sense. Can you maybe get 4 or 5 people to answer the phone?
Well, and then in order to deal with some of the UIA stuff, they actually pulled people off layoff to come back to this to deal with some of this stuff.
I just think maybe if departments talk to each other, it would really help.
Okay, Paul, we go back to Paul's question.
Okay. Well, my first part's just a little bit of pretext to get to my question, but I find it kind of troubling that on March 22nd, this is going back to the actual fundamentals, so it's about the exchanges, but I'll get to that. On March 22nd, Joe Hoffman was in an interview on the radio where he actually said that every argument he heard against a state-federal partnership was a political argument, not about what's best for Michigan, which I hope after what's happened today, that's changed. First thing with that, I'm very troubled by the whole idea of it not being, nullification was found to not be feasible, when essentially what you're doing is saying that, well, we're going to do this state-run exchange or the state-federal partnership to try and have some control. And you're talking about trying to have some control over this monstrous federal organization that can create regulation on a whim that just added 1,000 pages last month to Obamacare. So I think you're kind of trying to nullify it a little bit by saying, well, let's do this to have some control. So you're talking about nullification to some standpoint. So I find this whole lack of understanding of the Constitution kind of troubling, to say the least. But also my question would be, could you actually point to what amendment or what part of the Constitution authorizes Obamacare?
Right.
Anyone up there who's brave enough to
That was a legal
take
question.
that?
Like, in case, like, as I understand the question is, can you identify in the Constitution the basis for Obamacare?
Well, I guess it's Supreme Court ruled on.
Yeah. I would have to agree, I think the Supreme Court justices. I would do the same reference. Very creative.
So is the response the Supreme Court gave the authorization, is that the legal basis for Obamacare that you're basing this off of? Is that what you just said, Roger?
Yes, I don't have an answer for you, Paul. It's been resolved. I mean, we're not going to go forward with the state exchange or the partnership exchange.
This is all about the actual basis for how you guys come to these decisions, because I'm hearing about, well, what if a state passes really tough gun control laws? The federal law is only applicable if it's made in pursuance to the Constitution. Otherwise, it's up to the states or to the people. That's the 10th Amendment. So I'm not just worried about the exchanges. I'm worried about the gun control bills and everything going forward. What are you guys using to base whether or not it's feasible to do some of these things? Like, how are you coming to these decisions? Because this is, more than just the exchanges.
I don't know how to answer you. We make, I think, very logical and reasoned decisions, and most of the time it's based on what is applicable law. And, our attorneys are there. We have a great set of attorneys that are guiding us on a lot of this. And I guess I thought I came here to talk about the budget.
Well, this has a cost. This will impact the budget long term. All these things. You're talking about expanding Medicaid, so ultimately, it, how you make these decisions will impact the budget. But
Two more.
I'll let Jim in.
I want to get some other questions. Question over here and questions from Steve. Did you identify yourself?
Yeah, my name is Ruth Dykens. I live in Park Township, and as a